Okay, so every single month we get hit with this avalanche of economic numbers, right? You know the ones. Jobs gained, GDP growth, the unemployment rate. And these aren't just numbers on a page. They literally move markets and totally shape how we see the economy. But what if the story they're telling us isn't the whole story? What if it's kind of misleading? Let's dig in.
Take a look at this number, 0.3%. Seems pretty tiny, right? Almost nothing. But here's the thing. That is the average swing in the S&P 500 on the day the jobs report drops. That tiny little percentage translates into billions of dollars in market value, just vanishing or appearing in a matter of minutes. All of it riding on just one set of stats. So yeah, the stakes, they're incredibly high.
And that brings us right to the heart of it. What if these incredibly powerful market-moving numbers are way more complicated and honestly a lot more misleading than we think? What's really hiding behind that headline?
To figure that out, let's start with the big one, the most famous statistic of them all, the unemployment rate. We hear it all the time, but do we actually know what's in it? Let's break it down.
So this is the official formula. It's got a technical name, the youth rate, and it looks super simple. You take the number of unemployed people, divide it by the total labor force. Easy. But the real secret, the tricky part, isn't in the math at all. It's in how they define those words.
So it all begins with a massive survey. The Bureau of Labor Statistics, the BLS, gets in touch with about 60,000 households and puts them into one of three buckets. You're either employed, unemployed, or, and this is the important one, not in the labor force. Here's the catch. That whole third group, everyone not in the labor force, they get completely left out of the final unemployment number.
And this, right here, is where things get really interesting. See, to be officially counted as unemployed, it's not enough to just be out of a job and want one. You have to have actively looked for work in the past 4 weeks. If you haven't done that, well, you don't count as unemployed.
So what does that actually mean in the real world? It means millions, literally millions of people are just statistically invisible in that big headline number. Think about it. Discouraged workers who've just given up hope, they're not counted. People working part-time who desperately need full-time hours, the system sees them as fully employed. And anyone who wants a job but hasn't searched in the last month for whatever reason, poof, they're just erased from the picture.
And you can really see the difference it makes. The BLS actually has another number called the U6 rate that does include those discouraged and underemployed folks. And when you put the two side by side, it's a very different story. The U6 rate almost always paints a much tougher picture of the job market. The number we hear on the news is on the left. A more complete and, frankly, more honest story is on the right.
Okay, so that definition of unemployed is one major issue. But there's a second one, this illusion that the numbers we get are set in stone. The truth is, when they're first released, they're really just a first guess. You see, when a jobs number first comes out, it's based on only about 73% of the data. That's it. It gets updated a month later, then updated again 2 months later as more surveys come in. And then it gets a big annual revision after that. The key takeaway here is that the number that makes all the headlines is almost never the final accurate number. And believe me, these changes can be absolutely massive. Just look at the 2008 financial crisis. The first reports way understated how bad things were. For September 2008, the final revised number showed job losses that were 2.5 times bigger than what was first announced. Our leaders were essentially trying to navigate a hurricane with a foggy weather forecast. In fact, the biggest single monthly revision ever was for over 500,000 jobs. The number for January 2009 was revised down by 504,000. I mean, that's not a rounding error. That's like the entire workforce of a major city. It just shows you how much uncertainty is baked into those first reports that everyone reacts to. So you've got these two big issues, right? Vague definitions and huge revisions. Together, they create weak spots. And in the world of politics, weak spots like these can be used, even exploited, to spin a very particular story about the economy. This is exactly why we need strong, independent institutions to act as guardrails, to protect the numbers. As Erica Grosjean, a former head of the BLS, warns us, when you start removing those layers of independent oversight, you make the data really vulnerable to political games.
And for example, the source material we're looking at highlights a few controversies from 2025, getting rid of important advisory groups like FESAC, and even proposals to change the fundamental way we calculate major numbers like GDP. Moves like these really spark a debate about whether we can trust the independence of the data we rely on. Just think about that proposed change to GDP. The standard way to calculate it, the way everyone does it around the world, includes government spending as part of the economy. But a new proposal suggested creating a headline number called private GDP that just takes all government spending out. Now, this would totally break from global standards and could, for instance, make a recession look a lot better than it is, because government spending often goes up to help fight a downturn.
Okay, so with all this complexity and all this potential for spin, how do you and I become smarter about all this? Well, let's build a quick data detection toolkit. A few simple things to keep in mind. All right, 3 things. First, always look for disagreements. There are actually 2 big job surveys, one that asks households, another that asks businesses. When they're telling you 2 different things, that's a red flag to dig deeper. Second, look at who's actually in the game. If the unemployment rate goes down, but the labor force participation rate also goes down, that might just mean people are giving up, not getting jobs. And third, always follow the revisions. Don't let that first splashy headline be the final word for you.
Because at the end of the day, that's what this is all about. Every single economic number is an attempt to make a messy, complicated reality simple. And that process of simplifying things always leaves something out. So the next time you see one of those big headline numbers flash across your screen, remember to ask yourself the most important question of all. What story isn't this number telling me?